Welcome to Retailistic, the official podcast of Coresight Research for July 15th, 2025. This week, our CEO, Deborah Weinswig, and Managing Director of Technology Research, John Harmon, discuss the consumer reaction to last week's Amazon Prime Days and the implications of the unexpectedly positive results for the remainder of the year. Hi, Deborah.
Hey, John, how are you?
Hi, Deborah. It's a pleasure to be here again.
We are excited to kind of talk about the results of Prime Day. First, did you shop? Did you participate?
I did. I'm not the best Amazon Prime shopper. I think in some years I haven't bought anything. But I waited till midnight of the very last day, and by that time I wasn't really in the mood for shopping. I had 5 or 6 things in my cart, and that's what I went home with. How about yourself?
It's interesting. I took a very kind of Double 11 shopping festival approach, and about a week before, I started to put things in my cart that I was interested in buying, and then I price compared through the shopping festival. I definitely bought more than I have in years past, but I think some of it was because there were so many retailers who participated. It was very well televised, and just kind of, I think, thinking about the back half of the year, right, our price is going to go up. So I think some of it was better messaging from Amazon and others. Some of it was just kind of broader, and then some of it was thinking about my own kind of personal financial situation. How would you say this year compared to the past for you?
Well, just to comment on what you just said, I think you did it exactly the right way. Just throw everything in your cart when you have time and you're not under pressure, and then you can see which of the items are discounted and which are not, and take them out of your cart. I mean, I think what's interesting, one thing we can discuss is, why was it 4 days this year versus 2 days last year? I think there are a lot of reasons, but it could pick up some stragglers, right? People who aren't paying attention or thinking about it or wait to the last minute. It does give them 4 days to shop versus two previously. As I said, I'm kind of a bad Amazon shopper. I saw the pre-Prime Day deals coming, and I really didn't interact much with them. I really waited for Prime Day proper to kick off.
But I don't think it's interesting because we always think we're like an N of one, but at the end of the day, this is why I've always loved studying retail. Like, we are the consumer. And, if we look at the Coresight data in terms of people shopping this year versus kind of shopping in the past, it was definitely, everything was kind of just a little bit lower, which is interesting because, like, those with intent to spend, those who actually spend. And I wonder if in some ways it had almost that kind of, Black Friday feel, right? It kind of like was before and after, it like taking over the whole month. I don't know. How do you explain the data side of it?
I think the data surprised us a little, right? I mean, like you said, the intent to spend, intent to browse was lower, but yet in the end, our data shows that more people spent and more people spent than didn't shop. I think I don't want to throw mud at this research firm, but I'm sure you saw that too. Like after the first day, someone came out and said, "Oh, Amazon sales are down 40% from last year on Prime Day." I think a lot of people were like me and took their time or waited to the last day. They knew they had 4 days to do it. So I think it made the data look bad in the beginning, and I think a lot of shoppers just got with the program and kind of changed their views on Prime Day.
Yeah, and I think also too, it's hard when you have a period of time that's incomparable to the year before. And I think, even sometimes kind of where, a holiday falls around an event or something like that. But I mean, you and I are experienced kind of shopping festival purveyors. And what I did notice and I thought was really interesting was around like thinking about retail media. And if you remember, right, Alibaba has, kind of the whole super brand day. You highlight one brand for a whole day. There were definitely brands, right, that were highlighted. You had time to spend with Amazon executives around how they were thinking about Prime Day this year. What surprised you from those conversations?
So I'll tell you something people may not know about Amazon and Prime Day. You know, every year their electronics are highly discounted. Yeah, you might think Prime Day is just an opportunity for retailers to unload slow-moving merchandise. I mean, we certainly see that, how Amazon um, heavily discounts their own consumer electronics on Prime Day. But Amazon execs informed me that they have a quality score for all the products they sell, and for Prime Day, I mean, according to them, they really cultivate well-loved products that score highly on quality and sales, to put on the marketplace.
And, John, as you start to think about kind of how retail media comes into play with Prime Day, how are some of the brands who are highlighted, right? Kind of, do they need to have a certain percentage off, right? Like how does all this kind of come into play? What's some of the magic behind the holiday?
Well, I mean, as we all know, Amazon's marketplace is huge. It's really hard to get noticed on Amazon.com, especially if you're like a foreign brand or a new brand. Retail media is really an essential part of it. You have to sign up for it to get noticed on the marketplace. It's really effective, but I mean, unfortunately, brands have to pay to be found on the marketplace.
Are there kind of like rules around kind of percentage off, or right with like Double 11, you have to have the lowest price of the year, right? It's, kind of the Alibaba, kind of Double 11 shopping festival is very kind of rigorous. So consumers know what to expect, the brands know what to expect. How would you kind of compare and contrast between Double 11 and Prime Day?
I think Amazon Prime Day is more unstructured, as far as I know. There aren't any fixed rules about what kind of discounts you have to offer, what kind of merchandise you have to offer. As I mentioned, I think it goes by this quality rating that they really encourage their merchants to offer and discount their best merchandise on Prime Day.
And I know you had the opportunity to spend time with some of the executives to kind of get a sneak peek. What did they share that was interesting, and was there anything unexpected?
Sure, yeah. I mean, a couple of things. I mean, one, Prime Day is expanding globally, as we know. This year, they added Colombia and Ireland to Prime Day. And it's really part of Amazon's flywheel that by getting people into Prime, they do more volume. It lets them offer lower prices. It expands their marketplace. More products are available on the marketplace, which encourages more customers to shop there. The other thing that I heard when I was up at their headquarters was Amazon is working on basically being an instant needs delivery company. They're already doing that in India. We know that in the US, they offer same day delivery. We visited a fulfillment center outside of Seattle where they offer 5 hour or less delivery in Seattle. And again, but the products are really ready for delivery in about 15 minutes. They're just sitting there in bins waiting for the drivers to pick them up and take them out. Um, the flywheel, again, the more volume they do, the more efficient they'll get, the faster delivery they can offer. And, they've got a shot at 15-minute delivery, whereas a lot of companies that tried it have failed.
It's a good point. I mean, I've been just obsessed with these kind of e-bikes and these kind of mobility kind of vehicles that Amazon's using. I think they've been using them. I did a bunch of research. They've been using them in the city since 2019, but they went through and were showing kind of how they were using them as it related to kind of Prime Day and help them with like seamless delivery and whatnot. And so I think that I don't know about you. Have you, John, you and I live in different parts of New York. Have you seen kind of these almost like motorized Amazon delivery folks in your neighborhood or around?
I have not. Just these big, they're probably electric vehicles by Rivian that look like great toasters that cruise through the neighborhood.
So
Well,
I
they're boxy, right? They're very boxy, these delivery vans.
no, we don't. It's interesting. So like I said, I did a bunch of research to to understand better where they are and how they're delivering. And so they're basically like an e-bike with kind of, and they were talking about like the number of wheels even, about how many packages they can deliver, but they're not, it's not just a bike, right? It's like a bike with a little tiny house on it. And so in the little tiny house is all the packages, but you can see right there, they're like weaving their way through the traffic, which is all, a standstill, right? Like in Manhattan, right? You're not talking about, right? People aren't like flying through Manhattan. So it's also quite safe. And I think because it's a bike and not a car, I would assume that if we think about, going back to like way back when with Webvan, where you'd have like a motor vehicle that was stopped, right, which could get a ticket. With a bike, you're not getting a ticket for having a bike. So I actually spent a lot of time going through this whole idea because it really is quite smart. I mean, certainly, kind of carbon footprint, cost. And I guess all the people who are doing this, once again, doing my research, were all kind of third party as well. But I mean, everyone's wearing an Amazon delivery polo shirt, but it's fascinating to see kind of how they're doing it and why. So I think also too, people got their packages really quickly. And there was, I mean, I ordered stuff on Thursday and got it Friday. And they were like, you have a certain amount of time if you want to add anything on, and there's no additional delivery fee. And I'm like, that's amazing. I mean, I don't know what you've seen in terms of your own delivery in the city, but
I didn't really notice. You may not have noticed, but Amazon has several relatively new delivery options, right? You can pick your Amazon delivery day and have all your packages delivered. Like if Saturday is really convenient for you, you can have everything come on Saturday. I like to do the one where if you have it delivered on a certain day, you get a credit for media, books or movies or things on Amazon. But also, I don't know if you've noticed, there's an early morning delivery, like between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. And I picked it once, and the delivery person rang the bell at 4 a.m. when I wasn't there, and had to come back the next day and
seriously?
deliver it. But yeah, well, the head of Amazon Prime told us, it's really interesting. He has a family, babies with diapers, or maybe you forget a birthday present or something, so you can pick 4 to 8 a.m. and get it delivered, before you go to work in the morning. It's not for me, but it's really convenient for some people.
Well, it's funny, right? You think about GoPuff goes till 2 a.m. So you have like a 2-hour window where you can't get anything delivered. But outside of that, I mean, it is interesting. So I think if we go back, I mean, one of the things I thought was interesting was kind of like what people bought for Prime Day. And I know we had the prediction around kind of clothing, footwear, accessories, and that seemed to be even just slightly ahead of our predictions. Is that kind of going back to, is it people are like, okay, right, back to school. So very much like we would call it fashion basics versus fashion. Is that what you think we saw, or what do you think took place?
Well, I mean, we discussed this earlier. There wasn't a big divergence between last year and this year on clothing, because I think that's not the way people think for Amazon Prime Day, or maybe they're ordering back to school clothes this year, same as last year, more or less. But I think, as we looked at it, there was a big jump in products that we would call basic needs, right, from last year to this year, in health products or pet, food and beverage, household products. Those are some of the top categories. So I think it shows people were buying more for needs than for wants or entertainment this year.
Yeah, I also thought what was very interesting was, my belief. First of all, many of the retail executives who we've talked to, they've really mentioned how they are very on top of, okay, so, right, we have a minimum amount of tariffs right now, but absolutely preparing their organizations if they grow. And so far, I think they've done a great job of absorbing what they're facing already. And so we haven't, a lot of the consulting clients we work with, right, we had suggested very early on, right, bring in everything you can and raise price early. But I think, right, if you look at CPI and everything else, I mean, we're not seeing prices up. And it could be, right, going back to like basket of goods, and, it's no longer $9.99 for me to buy a dozen eggs at the store. So there's certainly things that have come down and other things that are going up. But do you think that there's how much do you think kind of price increases is going through the consumer's mind?
This is kind of a conundrum. Because we track consumer sentiment here at Coresight Research, and it's been on an uptrend. I think consumers have been lulled into a state of complacency, and so I'm just speculating, forgotten about tariffs for the time being because we're not really seeing them yet. But we know the other shoe has to drop really soon. This extra inventory that retailers were able to accumulate is going to burn off, and these tariffs are going to hit. I like to say that consumers are really savvy, and they stocked up ahead of the tariffs. I'm sure some did, but it's interesting. But I think we're going to see the effect of this really soon.
I mean, I'm going to take the other side of that, because I think that retailers have been utilizing AI to think about staffing much better, right? So, okay, the consumer's there between 6 and 8 p.m. at night, right? Like, let's focus on those hours. Let's make sure we're delivering like best in class customer service. So I think they're like leaning into more hours when the consumer's there, and less hours when, traffic's down. I think that they are doing a much better job of working with their vendors to think about cost of product, retail media. And I also am seeing quite a bit just in terms of like rethinking processes, but also if you can document, I mean, this is like what we've been trying to do at Coresight. If you can document the process, then you can figure out what part of that can you automate, and then, right, like let the team do what they enjoy doing the most, which is not usually checking the boxes. And so I think that as a result of all that, we're continuing to see, I think, much to people's surprise, investments in innovation and technology. And I think that with that, we're not seeing the price hikes like many had predicted just yet. And so I think almost too, I feel like people breathed a sigh of relief on Prime Day. I actually think it served a much bigger purpose, where I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness we're not seeing prices up. Yes, the deals are meh, right? It's not like 80 off, but 20 off. And in some ways, I think that also gave consumers, I actually think that I don't know if I want to say quieted exactly, but I think it helped consumers feel better about the back half of the year.
I mean, going back to what you said, I mean, retailers have quite a few levers they can pull to manage prices. We heard about Walmart trying to lean on its suppliers to share the pain. Home Depot said, I believe, there were just some products they were just not going to sell anymore because they estimated the customers just wouldn't buy them with tariffs on them. So, in terms of the mix, that'll put some positive benefit on pricing through those things. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of savings opportunities in technology and AI, other things that retailers can do, and maybe they're taking a little bit of the pain. But yeah, I think Prime Day was a really bullish data point about the consumer. Consumers, even if consumers are stocking up ahead of tariffs coming, they've got the cash to do it, and they did it, right? They came out and they shopped on Prime Day, so it just shows they're just willing to come out and spend, and that they can react to deals that are out there.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. So, John, as we leave our audience with a few tidbits, what do you think is most important to think about coming out of Prime Day? And as we go into, I can't even believe it, start to get ready for like holiday and kind of Halloween and all of these other great holidays that are just around the corner.
Well, you talked about comparison shopping. One data point in our survey said that 46.7% of consumers we surveyed plan to shop Walmart deals. So, I think it says, well, consumers are
Yeah.
comparison shopping, and they were head and shoulders above other retailers. I mean, what I take from that is Walmart's out there giving Amazon some competition. We see a lot of retailers jump on the bandwagon of Prime Day, and that's a great thing. And there are deals out there too, but Walmart's really going after Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, yes, you have the Whole Foods locations and whatnot, but I do think that also with Walmart Plus, and actually I want to leave everybody with this thought, right? So we now have many of the large, most successful retailers with a membership type of program, right? So you've got Walmart Plus, you have Amazon Prime, you've got Costco, BJ's, Sam's Club, Target's kind of 1 foot in each, which that's just the beginning, I think, of their problems. But I do think this idea around, and then like, let's look at some of the others who participated in Prime Day, right? Kohl's, you have the credit card, right? So I think that's in some ways, that's your membership. And I think people feel very passionately about that. And maybe that's some of what Target has going for it. But once again, I think Target's a bit like all over the place. And so I do think that this idea, right, whether you're Walmart or your Costco, I do think that those retailers think differently, right, about how they treat their members. And right, your ticket into Amazon Prime Day is you have to be a Prime Day member. And right, that's kind of like the cost of admission. And so I do think that we're seeing this additional focus on customer service from, a Walmart that I think goes above and beyond what we've seen in the past. I think it's really resonating with consumers, but I think they're also thinking about how to give those customers value. And when Walmart started to do live streaming, I was live streaming fanatic, however you want to look at it. And so I was buying things, and right soon after they launched Walmart Plus, and I was probably, at the beginning of the line. And I can only imagine if I lived in the suburbs and it was easier to get to a Walmart, right, how much more I would shop there. But I will say, right, like customer service and, my funniest story ever, John, oh my gosh, it was crazy. We had ordered all this stuff for my daughter to go to camp, and it like didn't show up. It like just did not show up. And we had like no time buffer, right? It's like I was traveling, I got back from a work trip. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's leaving Thursday and it's Monday. And so I remember calling Walmart. They're like, oh yeah, in Manhattan, they just throw this stuff on the street. You're lucky you get it, right? Like, no problem, we'll refund you for it. Was like literally, I mean, obviously, if I remember it, it was from a customer service perspective, first, it was great. Secondly, the guy was just like, could not have like been more like accommodating. And I think that they've really kind of leaned into this customer service angle in a way that I think is really resonating. And if you think about it, right, Walmart, right, some of their greatest growth is in this 100,000 plus household income consumer. And that used to be kind of Target's focus. And so I think that what we're just seeing is a bit of a shift. And what I will tell you on the other side, what I would worry about if you're in like strictly in the grocery space. I mean, I don't know if you shop Whole Foods or if there's one close to you. I mean, first of all, they're like on every corner in the city now. I mean, we should go walk up and down, John, and just count the number of like literally from like where our office is in Lower Manhattan up to like kind of, maybe to the top of the park. I mean, it is like unbelievable how many, and like right from Google Maps, you can see what was there before and what was there now. And so I think this idea around Amazon, I feel, is leaning more into the grocery side, right, from a convenience with Whole Foods, right? Convenience perspective, more from a, right, you see it, you see it, buy it kind of thing. And I feel that, right, if you look at those two retailers together and the amount of market share they've gained, I'll throw Costco in there too. I worry in some ways that Walmart's impact on Target's over 100,000 household income customer is similar to Amazon/Whole Foods impact on the grocery sector. And I fear, I do stay up at night, honestly, thinking about some of this stuff, is what does kind of like this like mass look like in, let's call it like 2 years, right? What happens to chain drug is just getting like obliterated, right? And so there's all that market share for grabs. And I think we continue to see consolidation in a lot of the independent and regional grocers. And what happened if you go back, right, like 40 years, right, all of drug used to be independent grocers. And now, right, we've seen, I mean, you've got, 3 going down to 2, unfortunately, major, and maybe you look at it that Walmart is a chain drugstore, kind of, I guess, I don't know. But I do feel there's a lot of change. I really want to spend a lot more time on this data, right, that we just got our hands on, because I think there's more there than meets the eye. And then if you compare our Amazon Prime data with the consumer data, I actually think they line up quite a bit. And so my key takeaways were the consumer focused on the basics. I do believe that they treated themselves where they could. They, I think, are, instead of maybe, kind of going on vacation right there, it looks, I mean, that's what the data suggested, right? That people who were going to buy things to go on vacation, they bought a lot less of that. So either they still went on vacation, treated themselves, but kind of dug into the back of the closet, versus, kind of buying a new this, that, or the other, so that they could then either, I think, plan for the back half of the year, right? Whether it's holiday or whatnot. But I do feel like the consumer is planning more than I've ever seen them. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Those are a lot of thoughts to comment on. Let me start in the beginning. I mean, first of all,
Great.
so I want to say clearly, Amazon is not paying me to say this, but they called Amazon Prime a membership and not a loyalty program, right? And if you look at it, $139 a year, that's what the video service alone would cost you. So if you think of the extra value that's being added on, they talked about services that I really didn't pay attention to, right? In addition to the same day and 2 day shipping, you get free storage, free music streaming, and all the other benefits. And they were headed very strongly that their plan is to add additional services, free services onto Amazon Prime, so as to further increase, its value to its customers and and deepen the moat, right? Um, and grocery, yeah, there's Amazon Go, there's Amazon Fresh, there's Whole Foods, and Amazon.com. And I got the sense that where they want to go is you have a grocery order and you add an espresso maker into it, or you have an Amazon.com order and you add some groceries. Again, it's the synergies between all the platforms and delivery platforms they have, that simplistic, but they want a bigger share of our wallet. They want us to buy more stuff, whether it's grocery or toasters or espresso machines, and that's what they're trying to do. Again, it's the flywheel. The more stuff we buy from them, the more efficient they get, the lower their cost, the more products they can offer, and the more stuff we'll want to buy from them. But it's interesting
Yep,
in grocery.
I agree.
I asked them this question and they got mad at me. It was kind of rude. But I mean, Amazon's presence in grocery is not yet commensurate with their presence in e-commerce marketplaces, right? But they pointed out that last year Amazon sold $100 billion worth of everyday essentials, which includes groceries. So they've clearly got their eye on it.
Yeah, I mean, I also think it's just, when you think about it from a supply chain perspective, if you can, especially on the return logistics side, I just think having that physical presence makes such a huge difference. And until we get to the point in the US where we see much lower returns, I just think that has to be part of how retailers and brands think about doing business, unfortunately.
I mean, anecdotally, Amazon seems a lot tougher on returns than they used to be, including offering more returnless refunds or specifying certain items are not returnable or adding restrictions to it, as they should do, right? Because returns are so horribly expensive. You really want to control them as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite had to be, there are two of them. One where like the bottle of Tide, which I don't order from them anymore, came like cracked, and like I'm lucky the box made it. And so I reached out and they're like, well, we'll make an exception this time. I'm like, what? I'm like, how are you making an exception this time? Because the like bottle of Tide had cracked. And then the other, this is what switched me over to GoPuff in my early days, where I had taken a red-eye flight back from Las Vegas. I think it must have been grocery shop, to like surprise my son with a Carvel cake for his birthday. So get out home, they came early. I think, this is when you had like a pretty brief window with grocery, and like literally the entire cake is completely melted. He was still thrilled. I mean, I have to tell you, he like didn't even notice. And so like I called them and they're like, well, we suggest you go to your local grocer to get another Carvel cake. And I'm like, very kind, but I'm like, if I could have gotten it from another grocer, I would have gone. But I like live in Manhattan. There is not another grocer, at least at the time there wasn't, that I could get a Carvel cake. And so I literally, like, I mean, you know me, you've known me a long time. I never take usually to kind of like the airwaves to vent, but I was just like, when it's your child or someone you care about. And so I was like, oh, like I should have gotten a GoPuff. I kid you not. I literally got like an inbound from GoPuff who somehow got me a Carvel cake. So I don't even think it was like something they sold at the time. Now they do, but I think that whole story may have been part of the inspiration for it. But it was such an interesting, right? Like, and then Amazon, of course, reaches out over like Twitter is where I think I like, kind of let it fly. And they're like, oh, we're here to help you. I'm like, well, you weren't about 15 minutes ago. I'm like, and so I think it goes back to customer service and kind of, what is it? And especially if going back to someone's paying for a membership. So I think that you have to treat them very specially, right? Because they've chosen to spend their money with you so that they can shop. And I mean, you've got all those amazing stories. I mean, one is more amazing than the next on like Costco, where people were like returning tires that they'd bought 20 years ago, not from Costco. Right. And they're like, sure, we'll take the tires back. Right. Like, whatever. What do you think you paid for them kind of thing? And so I think that's how you win. And going back to this whole like flywheel idea or zeitgeist, however you want to look at it, I think that's how you win. And I think that Walmart is really leaning into that. And I think it's showing up in the data. So I think any parting thoughts for our listeners, John?
Sure. I mean, I believe in essentially no questions asked customer service. You can't be delivering melted ice cream cakes to people. For people not in New York City or not on the East Coast, they probably need to know Carvel is these chain of ice cream stores. And I don't know them that well either, but I guess their signature product are these ice cream cakes that you get. So there are Carvel stores around New York City. I know there's one close to me in Brooklyn, but I don't know their presence in grocery stores. But it was definitely wrong to try to send you there.
I think they were just trying to. I mean, hey, they were trying their best. That's all I know. But I think, John, this was great. I think it was, to me, really interesting that Amazon had an analyst meeting to kind of give a preview of Prime Day. I think it was fascinating to see how many companies participated. I think this idea around membership and, going back to what we learned over the many years from Alibaba, I think we're just starting to see the beginnings of that kind of trickle their way through Prime Day. So I can't wait to see the next one. I think it's going to be really exciting.
As Steve Jobs always said, one more thing, though. They hinted at this. I wouldn't be surprised if we see tiers in the Amazon Prime membership. I mean, today you sign up, you get everything. But I believe in India, they're experimenting with tiers due to, like in the US, wide disparities in income levels. And I think they're giving a lot of thought to offering premium services for a premium price. We certainly know there are Amazon customers who probably spend thousands or tens of thousands of dollars per month
actually a great
with
point.
them as compared to the rest of us.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really interesting idea. And if you can even do like a shorter term kind of membership as well. All right, John, thanks so much for joining. We can't wait to have you on next time.
It's a pleasure as always. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Deborah, and thank you for being here. For access to our library of reports, videos, webinars, podcast episodes, event recaps, databanks, and more, visit us at Coresight.com. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week.